everyone, and welcome to the SwirlyCast, the only audio show that can be enjoyed by humans and yokai alike, and is the subject of, well, it being an audio show. You can't actually listen to it on the radio. Sorry. I am your host, Koma. Happy science spent a few minutes out of your day to come hang out. Always much appreciated every single one of you guys. And with formalities out of the way, what is on our minds today? Another Puyo Crown episode of the SwirlyCast, that's what! So last time we did this, we talked about Banjo-Kazooie for Noble Bull, and now we're talking about Mega Man Star Force for Zero Dromus, and I am excited for this episode! So what exactly is Mega Man Star Force? I'll give you a brief overview. Created in 2008, Mega Man Star Force would be the latest branch in the Mega Man timeline, following the events of the Battle Network series, with the Star Force games themselves being spiritual successors to those. Much like its younger sibling though, the story in these games is what really take the front seat, and in the case of Star Force, I'd argue even more than any other in the timeline. And yes, that includes the X series. Star Force 1's narrative is amazing, and I mean that genuinely. And a lot of the talk here today is actually going to be about the opening of the story, because I actually legitimately think that while I can talk about the game itself, I would actually encourage people to play for themselves blind. So I'll just be going through the game's opening alone, and just getting the story set up so that you can experience everything, pretty simply. So let's begin with an overview of the opening chapter. The game stars a young boy named Geo Stellar, or you can name him to be whatever you blah. His life had completely changed one day when his father, Kelvin Stellar, was lost in an explosion up atop a space station, Peace. With the whereabouts of his father unknown, Geo shut himself off from the rest of the world aside from his mother, not even going to school because making friends is sort of hard for him when he lost someone so important to him. He doesn't want to lose anybody else. That day would soon change though, thanks to one of Kelvin's colleagues, Aaron Boreal, giving Geo his father's special glasses known as the Visualizer. Using this, he could look at EM waves in the EM wave world. Basically, this world is made entirely of electromagnetic radio waves. We'll go over those in a bit when we talk about gameplay. Skimming over a little bit of story here, we find ourselves at Vista Point, Geo's favorite spot to go stargazing, because he believes that he'll be able to talk to his father up there. When all of a sudden, an alien from outer space crashes into Geo's trancer, that being his little device on his arm. That being is known as Omegasys. And Omegasys is what's going to be our main crux for gameplay here. A bit of exposition later about something called the Andromeda Key, I don't want to spoil what all that's all about. Trouble arises in the EM wave world. And so, with the power of Omegasys, both him and Geo can fuse into one EM wave being known as Shooting Star Mega Man. Now as one, the two of them can travel across the EM wave world in the sky and access terminals to battle viruses and ultimately save the day from a bunch of anime shenanigans. So yeah, that was a lot to go over for a simple opening chapter, yeah? But if you're still caught up, there's also a little wrinkle in the story that Omegasys actually knew Geo's father, but to get the FME to talk, the boy has to listen to his demands. And thus begins a long and winding story about Geo's coming out of a shell party and all the anime hijinks that ensues because of it. I was being vague, of course, but hey, I want to avoid spoilers because if there's one thing that I know Star Force is, it has really good narrative. And it actually tackles some pretty heavy stuff. Yeah, a Mega Man game of all things. Tackling issues, very much psychological issues. It's kind of insane. It's even more insane that it's actually kind of effective at doing it. The issues it may tackle are psychological, yes, but it almost never loses its momentum and always keeps things on the right track. It surpasses its younger sibling by such a degree it makes Battle Network 3 look like Battle Network 4. And if you know, you know. But anyway, that's enough on that game story. Let's talk about the gameplay. The simplified loop gameplay is that you're playing as Geo, walking around different hub worlds, and can transform into Mega Man at specially marked areas with orange whirlpools. You can either spot them by looking at circles or by putting on your visualizer with the Y button. After that, you can run around the EM Wave world, and in this area, you can be jumped by viruses and start battles. And this is where Star Force and Battle Network kinda differ a lot. The battle system is kinda like Battle Network's, but it's very different. You have a forward-facing grid with Mega Man up in the front with the viruses in the back. At the start of every turn, you can select from a handful of battle cards in your folder. These battle cards have a variety of effects, from using a simple attack, summoning an ally, healing yourself, or even changing the terrain. Your battle style will depend on what cards you have in your folder, so get creative and have lots of fun. It's a big part about why Battle Network and Star Force work so well, is because you have a lot of creative freedom once you unlock a lot of battle cards. When you don't have any cards though, you can fight as just standard Mega Man. By holding down the B button, you can fire a rapid fire Mega Buster. If you wait for a while without firing, you can use the Charge Shot, which does a lot more damage, and by pressing the L button, it will grant you a shield that will block any one attack so long as you time it correctly. It can be particularly useful to given some bosses. I gotta say, while it may not be as good as Battle Networks in my personal opinion, this is a really rich battle system that sacrifices a lot of what made Battle Network intimidating for newcomers, but also what made it a lot more interesting, but still keeping the kinetic flow of gameplay and making it much more friendly to newcomers. So yeah, all in all, I'd say it was a success. Enemies are going to test your endurance, and bosses are going to test your skill and your movement. So yeah, get good. These battles are going to be absolutely wild, and I feel like you'd probably enjoy them. Presentation-wise, this game looks and sounds great. The jump to the DS really allowed the colors in the overworld to pop, and the music to shine that much greater. The tunes on display are some of my favorites in the entire timeline, and handles the scenes and dungeons they occupy perfectly. I especially like some of the songs like Study Now, the battle theme, and the boss battle theme. There's a lot of great tunes to be displayed, and the sprite work on display for the overworld is really good too. All said, I highly recommend this game to fans of real-time strategy games, or those who want to see this out of Mega Man and, see what they're missing out on. Because yeah, this was definitely during the oversaturation period of Mega Man, but honestly, this is a gem amongst the crowd. If not for the story alone, because man, it's fantastic. It looks nice, it sounds nice, and the gameplay loop is pretty nice too. If nothing else, play the game for the story, or at least watch it up on YouTube, because there's something truly special about Star Force's story and how it handles these themes. And especially play it if you're interested in trying out Star Force DX, which is the version I would recommend for those who want to experience the game for the first time, without any of the, DS-isms the game likes during its dungeons. And I gotta say, the improvements DX includes for the game is absolutely amazing. The team that put that ROM hack together are very talented, and I'm very pleased with it. It's a good game, I recommend it, go try out DX. Or if you want to play the original, that's fine too. And with all said, yeah, I think that's it for me. But before I go, let us hear what Zero Drobus has to say about Star Force. Mega Man Star Force holds a special place in my heart because it was one of the first DS games that I owned and the game that got me into RPG games. Even though the game mechanics were tough, at least for me, I still really enjoyed the story that was told in Star Force. Simple and to the point. I like it. And hey, for a game that's specialty Zero, I'm glad I was able to cover it in the SwirlyCast because I think Star Force is very special too. It's definitely a game I recommend. Well, with that, that's where we're going to be calling the episode for now. So with that, this has been Koma, and my friends, fellow viewers to come always alike, thank you so much for enjoying this episode of the SwirlyCast. Until next time, bye bye! A thought just crossed my head though. We could actually make this show into a radio show. Nah, it'd be a little too much work for too little payout. Before we embark on our separate ways for today, I wish to give special thanks to the people who help support me financially by buying a sub on Twitch or who are gifted a sub, otherwise known as my lovely little Puyo Crown. From top to bottom, I'm here to thank Melisoni12, Clairvoyant, Luna7823, Sabian Black, Forhawk, Dreams in Stardust, Noble Bull, and of course, Zero Dromus. And if you too would like a shout out at the end of all these videos or would like a SwirlyCast of your very own made, then head on over to my Twitch page and buy a sub of any tier. But of course, only if you are willing and able. Thanks for watching!